A few weeks ago, I was working the night shift as usual. I'm Lila, 32, and I've been a nurse for a while. That night, the hospital felt more empty than ever. The long, dimly lit corridors stretched out before me like a maze. I just wanted to finish my shift. I checked on my patients. Most were asleep, and the quiet was almost comforting. But then I noticed one patient's room door was slightly open. The patient was in a deep, unconscious state, or so I thought. I walked over to close the door, but then I heard soft murmurs coming from inside. I paused, my heart racing. Was I just tired? I decided to see what was going on. I pushed the door open. The room was eerily quiet. The patient lay still, eyes closed. I felt a shiver. Maybe it was just fatigue. I shrugged it off and left. As the nights went on, things got stranger. Objects in the patient's rooms were out of place, like someone had been messing with them. I figured it was my coworkers. Then there was the same patient. During moments of lucidity, they spoke in riddles. They looked right at me, saying things like, "The shadows whisper secrets no one can hear." I wanted to laugh it off. Still, a chill ran down my spine. I started to see things, shadows in my peripheral vision. I thought I was just exhausted until I felt something watching me. It made my heart race. I kept telling myself that it was nothing, but the feeling wouldn't go away. One night, I found myself standing in front of the patient's room again. Everything was silent. I felt cold air wash over me, even though all the windows were shut. My heart pounded in my chest. I didn't want to open the door, but my hand reached for the doorknob anyway. Before I could turn it, I heard a different murmur. A voice called my name. "Lila, come closer." My stomach dropped. I was frozen. "This is just fatigue," I whispered. But deep down, I felt a wave of fear. I didn't know what to do. Then I saw something in my peripheral vision again. I turned, but nothing was there, just the empty corridor. All I could hear was my heartbeat. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, but then a voice broke the silence. "Why are you afraid, Lila?" I spun back to the door. Nobody was inside. My breath quickened. I stumbled back a step, my mind racing. I didn't want to believe what I was feeling. I thought I was losing my grip on reality. I felt a chill. I know now that something was wrong that night. I don't think I'll ever forget that voice or that moment in front of the patient's room. I just wanted to finish my shift, but it haunted me. What was happening to me? Why did it feel like the shadows were alive? The next night came around, and I dreaded the shift ahead. The shadows loomed larger, heavier somehow. I felt on edge, like I was walking a tightrope. I forced myself to check on the patients, but my mind kept drifting back to that room. As I made my rounds, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Each time I turned, the eerie silence was interrupted only by the faint sounds of machines. I approached the room with the patient who spoke in riddles. The door was shut tight this time. My pulse quickened as I knocked lightly. "Is anyone in there?" I called out, my voice barely above a whisper. Silence. I turned to leave, but froze when I heard it. A soft moan muffled through the door. My heart raced again. My thoughts spiraled. What if something was seriously wrong? I reached for the handle. Just then, the lights flickered. I backed up, pressing myself against the wall in the dim corridor. The flickering stopped, and everything was still again. "Get a grip, Lila," I muttered to myself, pushing the door open. The patient lay motionless, eyes still closed. I took a step inside. The air felt thicker, almost like the shadows themselves were clawing at me. That's when I noticed something on the floor. A small, dark object. I picked it up. It was a small piece of paper folded tight. I opened it, trembling. The note read, "The lips speak lies, but the eyes see truth." My heart sank. I felt dizzy. Was this meant for me? I glanced at the patient, whose face remained expressionless. Suddenly, a loud crash resonated from the end of the hallway. I jumped, dropping the note. My breath quickened as I rushed toward the sound. The noise came from the supply room. I hesitated, fear gripping me. "Hello?" I called. No response. I opened the door slowly, half expecting to see someone. Instead, the room was empty. But the shelves were partially toppled over, supplies scattered everywhere. A chill crept up my spine. I stepped inside, carefully navigating the mess. That's when I saw it, a shadow darting across the far wall. I whipped around, heart pounding. "Hello?" I shouted again, my voice shaky. No answer, only silence. I backed away, almost tripping over a box. Then, suddenly, I heard laughter, high-pitched and spliced with an unsettling echo. It didn't sound human. My instincts screamed to run, but I felt rooted to the spot. "Lila," the voice came again, soft and taunting, just behind me. I turned, but the hallway was empty. "Who are you?" I managed to whisper, my throat dry. No answer. In that moment, the lights flickered overhead, plunging me into partial darkness. Panic surged as I realized I was not alone anymore. Then, everything went dark, and I couldn't see a thing. I fumbled for my phone, the small light flickering to life. My heart raced as reality hit me. Whatever was haunting this hospital was not here to play games. I needed to find a way out, and fast. But now I had no idea whether I was running toward danger or safety. Then my flashlight caught something moving just at the edge of the dark. I could hardly breathe as I narrowed my eyes. What I saw made my blood run cold. The shadow shifted again, revealing a figure huddled in the corner. My breath caught in my throat. I could barely make out the features. A tangle of dark hair, thin arms wrapped around knees pulled tight against a chest. Instinctively, I took a step back, a wave of dread washing over me. "Who are you?" I asked, though my voice trembled with uncertainty. The figure remained silent, staring at me with wide, unblinking eyes. A shiver ran down my spine. What was this? Another patient? I flicked my flashlight across the room, hoping to catch a glimpse of a familiar face. Instead, the beam revealed only debris, crumpled gauze, and broken vials. "Hello?" My voice cracked as I took a cautious step forward. "Are you okay?" At that moment, the figure stood up abruptly. I squinted, trying to catch a better look. The light barely illuminated their face, but something felt horribly off. There was an unsettling smile stretched across their lips, unnatural and eerie. "I see you, Lila." The voice was soft yet haunting, echoing in the cramped room. "You shouldn't be here." My heart raced as I realized this wasn't a patient. This was something else, something dangerous. Adrenaline surged through me, urging me to flee. The laughter echoed again, bouncing off the walls. I turned, scrambling toward the exit. "Don't go," the figure called, but I didn't look back. I burst through the door, slamming it behind me, desperately trying to catch my breath. I sprinted away, my pulse hammering in my ears as I navigated the darkened hallways. I could still hear the laughter, ringing in my mind. It wasn't just a sound, it felt like it was chasing me. I skidded to a halt at the nurse's station, eyes wide. I needed help. I grabbed the phone, but hesitated. What would I say? That I saw a figure in the supply room? They'd think I was losing it. No one would believe me. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. There had to be a logical explanation. Maybe someone else was working late. Maybe I could find a coworker. I glanced at the clock. 3 a.m. I cursed under my breath. The night felt endless. Lila. The whisper crawled into my ear, and I whipped around, scanning the empty halls. It was too quiet now. I could feel the weight of the shadows pressing down. I decided to head toward the break room. The thought of a familiar space calmed my racing heart. As I moved, the flickering lights returned, illuminating the path in strange, strobing patterns. That's when I heard it again, the faint sound of rustling, like someone shuffling behind me. I spun on my heel, the flashlight beam swinging wildly. Nothing, just emptiness. But deep down, I knew I wasn't alone. Someone, or something, was following me. I burst into the break room, slamming the door shut and leaning against it, gasping for breath. The room was dimly lit, providing a small amount of safety. As I glanced around, my eyes fell on a small, dusty table in the corner. Something rested on it, a familiar piece of paper, crumpled but recognizable. I approached it slowly, a lump forming in my throat. It was the note from the patient.
The lips speak lies, but the eyes see truth. I'd seen it before, but I couldn't remember where. Did it lead to an answer? Was it a warning? I picked it up, and that's when I noticed a second note beneath it. My hands trembled as I unfolded the new paper. The words on it sent chills through my body. Look closely, Lila. The truth hides in plain sight. At that moment, I heard a soft knock on the door, followed by a whisper, "Lila, let me in." My mind raced with fear and confusion. I felt rooted to the spot, unsure of what to do next. Who or what was on the other side? I pressed my back against the door, heart pounding in my chest. The whisper on the other side was chilling and oddly familiar. "Lila, let me in." Who was it? My instinct screamed for me to stay hidden, but my curiosity clawed at me. I took a small step back, the surface of my phone cool in my hand. I should call for help, but would anyone even hear me? "Lila," the voice urged again, soft yet chilling. "It's me. You know me. Please let me in." I felt frozen. The voice had a strange comfort to it and a distinct urgency. But the laughter still echoed in my mind, mixing with the whispered plea, creating a dizzying swirl of fear and regret. "Who are you?" I called out, my voice steadier than I expected. There was a pause, and then the reply came, warped slightly, as if it were coming from somewhere far away. "I can't tell you. Not here. Just trust me. You need to see the truth." As I stood there, shadows danced at the edges of my vision. I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was on the other side of that door wasn't bringing me safety. I glanced back at the notes lying on the table. The truth hides in plain sight? Did it mean this moment? Before I could think further, I felt a shudder pass through the room, the darkness seeping closer. I heard footsteps, a soft, unmistakable sound, approaching the door. Someone was coming. I needed to make a choice. Did I dare to open the door? "Please," the voice was stronger now, almost desperate. "You've got to trust me." I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing thoughts. I needed to weigh my options carefully. This voice, it felt important, but there was a nagging feeling in my gut that something was off. Then an unexpected sound caught my attention, a distinct creak behind me. I turned sharply. The window. The night air slipped in through the cracked frame, the moonlight revealing a shadow darting past. My heart sank as I realized I wasn't alone in the break room after all. Panic surged through me, and I rushed to the window, pulling it shut with a clang. My hands shook as I fumbled to lock it tight. "Lila, stop!" The voice was louder now, but sounded distorted, filled with urgency and something else. Fear? I turned back to the door, realizing I had limited time. Whatever was outside wasn't friendly. I contemplated my next move. I could answer the call for help, or I could confront the unknown. Then, everything fell silent. The whisper on the other side had vanished. A part of me felt relieved, but dread quickly settled in. What had scared it away? Suddenly, the lights flickered and died, plunging me into darkness. I felt my breath quicken, panic clawing at my chest. Then, the door rattled violently. The last note slipped from my fingers. I could just make out the letters in the dim light from the brief flashes of lightning outside. "Look closely, Lila." Perhaps the truth wasn't just a message. It was something I had to uncover right that moment. Just then, as my thoughts raced, I heard footsteps again, this time close and deliberate, not behind me, but right outside the door. I was out of time. Something wanted in, and I couldn't wait any longer. I cracked the door open, ready to face whatever was waiting for me. I eased the door open just a crack, my heart hammering in my chest. The hallway was dark, only faintly illuminated by the emergency lights casting long shadows. I fought the urge to slam the door closed again. "Lila," the voice called, more insistent now. "You have to trust me. I need to warn you." As I peered into the hallway, my adrenaline surged. I scanned the area, searching for the source. But it was empty. Too empty. The intensity of the stillness felt wrong. "Who are you? What do you want?" I croaked, the fear creeping into my voice. Footsteps echoed, slow and measured, amplifying the terror wrapping around me. The door quivered slightly as I pushed it open a bit more. I couldn't see anything, but I could feel it. Whatever was out there, it was dangerous. "I can't say much here," the voice whispered again, rising in urgency. "Just know that you're in danger. Someone is coming for you." "Who?" I asked, confusion mingling with the fear. "What danger?" "Listen," the voice continued, now barely audible. "You need to find the file in Dr. Mason's office. It's—" The sound of heavy footsteps thumped down the hallway, cutting off the explanation. My blood ran cold. Instinctively, I pushed the door shut, slamming it shut and locking it again. I tried to steady my breathing, but panic surged as the footsteps neared. The door rattled violently. "Lila, you have to open the door!" "No!" I shouted, the word echoing back at me in the empty room. I backed away slowly, searching for anything that could help me. I spotted a chair in the corner and picked it up, ready to defend myself if the door broke. I could hear muffled voices now, one of them familiar, panic weighing heavy on my mind. Suddenly, the lights flickered back to life, illuminating the space just as the door suddenly swung open. I jumped, ready to throw the chair, but it was just a nurse, eyes wide with fright. "What are you doing here?" I gasped, lowering the chair reluctantly. "I was looking for you. Everyone's been searching," she said, panting slightly. "Something is happening. We need to move." "Move where?" I stammered, still in shock. "Those noises you heard? You're not safe here. It's not the patients. It's—" She hesitated, her gaze darting behind me, the color draining from her face. Before I could ask her what she meant, the lights flickered again, and I felt a cold breeze whip through the room, causing both of us to shiver. I could see a figure standing at the end of the hallway, shrouded in shadows. "What is that?" I whispered, feeling the weight of dread settle in my stomach. "It's them," she whispered back, her voice trembling. "We need to leave now." I didn't need to be told twice. I bolted for the door, adrenaline coursing through me as we rushed into the hallway. But before we could escape, the figure took a step forward, revealing a ghastly face twisted in a wicked smile. That's when I felt a gripping fear, one that made my heart plunge. I knew whatever was happening would only get worse, and the truth was farther from reach than ever before. As the lights flickered once more, I thought about the file in Dr. Mason's office. It was my only hope, but would I make it there alive? I spun around, ready to run, but the nurse grabbed my arm with surprising strength. "Don't look at it," she hissed, tugging me toward a nearby exit. "We have to stick together. It feeds off fear." "What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper as we hurried down the dimly lit corridor. The oppressive silence felt thicker now, as if the walls were closing in. I could feel an icy chill creeping up my spine. "I can't explain now. Just trust me," she said breathlessly. I wanted to protest, but the image of that figure burned in my mind, compelling me to follow her. We ducked into a side hallway, and the nurse paused to catch her breath. She pressed a finger to her lips, listening intently. The heavy footsteps were still echoing nearby, accompanied by hushed voices. Whatever was out there, it was looking for us. "Where's Dr. Mason's office?" I asked, glancing around like a trapped animal. "It's a few floors up, in the east wing. We have to take the stairs. The elevator isn't safe," she replied. "But we can't go back. They'll see us." I felt a surge of panic. What do we do then? We can't just stay here. Her eyes darted toward the end of the hallway. "We need to move, now." Without waiting for another word, she led me down the side corridor and pushed through a door marked "Staff Only." I followed her into a small room cluttered with medical supplies. The soft hum of fluorescent lights made everything feel even more surreal. "Where's the office?" I pressed, my eyes scanning the room for anything useful. "Just across the hall from the stairwell," she said, her voice tight with urgency. "But we have to be careful." Suddenly, the lights flickered and went out, plunging us into darkness. My heart lurched, and I could barely make out her silhouette. "Stay close," she whispered, grabbing my hand. I could feel her trembling beside me. With a deep breath, I led the way through the door into the adjoining hallway. The oppressive dark wrapped around us, each creak and moan of the building sending shivers down my spine. Every breath I took felt like a potential alert to whatever was haunting us. Just then, I heard a soft thud behind us, making me freeze. I turned, peering into the inky darkness behind. I wanted to run, but the nurse's grip tightened, pulling me away. "Run!" she commanded, her panic fueling my own. We sprinted down the hallway, not daring to look back. I could hear those footsteps close behind, gaining ground with each heartbeat. We hurled ourselves through an emergency exit and into the stairwell. My legs screamed as we dashed up the stairs, the fluorescent lights overhead flickering but still providing a dim light. My mind raced. What was in Dr. Mason's office? What was chasing us? Finally, we reached the second floor. My chest heaved as we stumbled into the corridor. A sign pointed to Dr. Mason's office, just ahead, gleaming in the shadows. "We have to get the file," the nurse urged, breathless yet resolute. "It's our only chance." As I stepped toward the office door, I heard that deep voice echoing in my mind. "You have to trust me." But as I reached out to grab the handle, I could feel a pressure building, something sinister lurking just behind us. That's when the chill in the air shifted, and I turned, slowly. And that's when I saw it. The shrouded figure, standing at the far end of the hallway, eyes glowing a sickly yellow, locked onto us with an unmistakable hunger. Before I could process what I was seeing, the nurse pulled me into the office, slamming the door behind us. We pressed ourselves against it, hearts racing in unison. I could feel her breath on my neck, quick and shallow. "Look for the file," she urged, her voice barely above a whisper. I scanned the room. It was cluttered with old medical books and half-open drawers. There was a desk littered with papers, and the walls held peeling posters of medical charts. I stumbled around the desk, rifling through the chaos, while the nurse listened intently by the door. It felt like the figure on the other side was looming in the shadows, waiting for a moment of weakness. My fingers brushed against a manila folder, nearly lost beneath a stack of outdated journals. I yanked it free, the rustle of paper loud in the silence. "Is that it?" the nurse asked, suspicious eyes darting to the door. I opened the folder, my heart racing. Inside was a mix of medical records and notes, but one document caught my eye. It was a report labeled Subject 7. My breath caught. "This is it," I said, gripping it tightly. While I studied it, the nurse leaned in, her face pale. "What does it say?" I quickly scanned the notes. "It talks about something called Project Lurker. It was meant to treat fear-based trauma." The words sent a shiver down my spine.
They used patients to test the effects of some kind of entity that feeds on fear. "What?" she whispered, eyes wide. "It says it can appear as a figure that manipulates nightmares and paranoia." Panic crept back into my chest as I remembered the glowing eyes. "They think it's still contained in the hospital." Before I could process it, a loud crack echoed through the room. I turned to the door as the shadows shifted and a cold breeze swept through the cracks. My heart thudded painfully against my ribcage. The nurse glanced nervously at the door. "We need to move now." Just as she spoke, the door rattled violently. I could hear the figure's heavy, deliberate breaths on the other side, recognizing the sound of a predator waiting. "We can't go out there," I shouted, regretting the fear-laden tone of my voice. The nurse grabbed my arm firmly. "There's no other way. We can't let it sense hesitation. If it realizes we're afraid." I heard the floor creak under the weight of whatever stood outside, pressing closer. I grabbed the report and shoved it into my coat pocket, feeling like it was the only thing keeping me anchored. The pounding resumed, echoing like a war drum. With a surge of courage, the nurse pulled open the nearest window. "We have to jump." "What? Are you out of your mind?" I protested, glancing around frantically for another escape. "Trust me," she snapped, climbing out and gesturing for me to follow. I hesitated, my gut churning, but I could faintly hear the figure's raspy breath turning into a low growl. Okay. I clambered after her, feeling the chill of the night air whip against my body. As I hoisted myself out, I heard the door shatter inward behind us. We dropped down into the darkness below, hitting the ground in a roll that took my breath away. Just as I looked up, I caught a glimpse of that figure launching through the window we'd just escaped from. "We need to run," the nurse yelled, dragging me to my feet. As we sprinted away from the building, something deep inside me knew this was only the beginning. We had escaped, but the real danger was still lurking somewhere within those walls, waiting for its next opportunity. We ran through the dimly lit parking lot, the shadows stretching and twisting as we hurried for the nearest exit. I struggled to keep pace, my lungs burning, but I forced myself to focus. I couldn't let panic take over. Not now. "Where are we going?" I gasped, stealing a glance back at the hospital. The air felt thick, as if the very darkness was alive and chasing us. "Just keep moving. There's a service entrance around the corner," the nurse shouted, her determination cutting through the haze of fear. We rounded the edge of the building, gasping for breath as we approached a narrow door embedded in the brick facade. The nurse pulled at the handle, but it didn't budge. Come on." I glanced back over my shoulder. The figure was still in that window, its presence heavy in the air, almost tangible. I remembered the glowing eyes and how they seemed to bore into my very soul. "Help me push!" I exclaimed, bracing myself against the door as she placed her shoulder against it. With a grunt, we shoved together. The door creaked under the strain, then finally swung open, revealing a dim corridor lined with flickering fluorescent lights. We stumbled inside and slammed the door shut behind us. The hallway felt eerily quiet. I could hear my heart thudding in my ears as we leaned against the door, trying to catch our breath. What now?" I asked, staring at the faded linoleum floor, my mind racing. "Let's check the layout," the nurse replied, her voice barely above a whisper. She pulled out her flashlight. "We need to find a way out without attracting attention." As she swept the beam along the walls, shadows danced like specters. I felt a prickling on the back of my neck, the sense that we were not alone. What if it followed us? Her expression hardened. If it's as powerful as the report said, it knows we're here. We pushed deeper into the corridor, dim light revealing worn signs pointing to various departments. Suddenly, a sound echoed in the silence, a soft whisper that sent chills down my spine. "Did you hear that?" I asked, pausing in my tracks. She nodded, eyes wide. "I did. It's coming from down the hall." Just as we turned to head toward the sound, the lights flickered violently, and we were thrust into darkness for a heartbeat. My heart raced as I fumbled to grab her arm. "What was that?" "I don't know." The emergency lights kicked in, bathing everything in an eerie red glow. That's when I saw it. A shape, barely distinguishable, flickering at the end of the hall. It looked like a person, but something was deeply wrong. "Stay close," the nurse urged, pulling me along as we approached cautiously. Each step felt like a lead weight in my stomach. The entity seemed to pulse, its form distorting like a warped reflection. We need to find a way out. But as we got closer, it vanished into the shadows, leaving nothing but the heavy air. Then a cold rush of wind swept through the corridor, and just like that, the lights flickered out again. Not again! Panic surged in me. I fumbled at my pocket, clutching the report with trembling fingers. This time, I could hear the breathing again, heavy and close. "We have to go!" I yelled, reeling back as the darkness seemed to close in. We turned to bolt, but a figure emerged, blocking our path. I froze, heart hammering. "Who are you?" it hissed, echoing off the walls. A voice that sent a new wave of terror through me, unlike anything I'd ever felt. The nurse squeezed my hand, and in that moment, I braced myself for whatever was about to happen next. The figure stepped closer, and I could make out its features. Pale skin stretched too tightly across its face, eyes glassy and sunken. My stomach twisted as fear took root. "Leave," it rasped, the word barely audible. Each syllable felt like ice slicing through the oppressive air. "Who are you?" I repeated, my voice shaky. "Doesn't matter," it hissed, and for a moment confusion flickered in its gaze. "This place, it's not safe." It took a step back, shadow melding into shadow, leaving us paralyzed. It knew we were trapped in a game larger than ourselves. "You need to go now." The nurse shook my hand, breaking my daze. "We can't just stay here." I swallowed hard, the urge to flee pushing against my instinct to stay. "But now," she demanded. Her voice was a lifeline, and I nodded. We bolted past the figure, adrenaline fueling my feet. I could hear its voice behind us, a whisper that seemed to wrap around me. "Run before it finds you." The corridor lengthened, stretching like a tunnel with no end. We turned left, sprinting past a series of unmarked doors. I caught a glimpse of a room filled with flickering monitors and medical equipment, but there was no time to look closer.
"How do we get out?" I yelled, panting heavily. My breath felt shallow against the thickening fear. "I'm not sure," the nurse admitted, glancing back as dread clouded her face. "I just keep thinking, if it could see us, we might not be alone." Her words hit harder than I expected. My chest tightened, and I pushed harder down the hall. At the end, I spotted emergency exit signs glowing dimly, but the air felt charged, heavy with an unseen presence. "Almost there," I urged. Just as we reached the door, a loud crash echoed behind us. Something had fallen, something big. We twisted the handle, but it wouldn't budge. "No, come on," I yelled, shoving against it with my shoulder, panic rising. "Move!" The nurse pressed against my back, and the door finally yielded. We stumbled outside, hitting the ground hard. But the parking lot was empty, the parking lights casting long shadows. No cars, no way to escape. "It's out there," I whispered, fear prickling at my skin as I turned to face the hospital entrance. "Let's hide," she said, scrambling toward a nearby dumpster. "We can wait it out." I darted after her, heart racing. As we pressed ourselves against the cold metal, I could hear the echoes of footsteps behind us. They were slow and deliberate, as if the presence was enjoying our fear. "What do we do?" I gasped, my chest tight. "We need to stay quiet," she answered, her voice barely a breath. But fear felt like a living thing, creeping up my throat. Then I caught sight of a figure, a shadow moving along the hospital's wall, searching. The whispers returned, swirling around us, wrapping tightly like a shroud. "You shouldn't be here," they echoed. My heart thundered in my ears as I glanced at the nurse, her eyes reflecting a terror that mirrored my own. "We have to find a way out, now," I urged, adrenaline fueling my desperation. But before we could move, the shadow stopped, turning towards us, its eyes glowing with a knowing light. I held my breath, waiting for the inevitable, a confrontation with whatever this was. And then it spoke. "Did you really think you could escape?" A cold dread washed over me. The exit might be just behind us, but it felt miles away as I realized the true nature of our pursuer was about to be revealed. We held our breath as the figure slid closer, its form twisted and indistinct, yet somehow familiar. Shadows clung to it, and for a moment it felt like it was absorbing the darkness around it. I could see its mouth moving, but the words it whispered were inaudible, drowned out by the chaos in my mind. "Lila," it breathed, each syllable thick with menace. My heart raced, and for a fleeting second, I thought I recognized the voice. It was the patient, the one who spoke in riddles. "Run!" I shouted, bursting from the safety of our hiding spot. The nurse didn't hesitate. We sprinted away, adrenaline propelling us forward as fear roared in my ears. I didn't dare look back, but I could hear it, the mocking laughter chasing closely behind us. We rounded the corner of the hospital, weaving through the rows of parked cars. My mind screamed at me to find a way out, but each exit felt further away than before. I spotted a rear entrance, a small door set into the stone wall. The flickering light above it cast eerie patterns on the ground. "That way!" I shouted, directing the nurse towards it. We bolted for the door, fumbling with the handle as if our lives depended on it, because they did. Just as I got it open, I felt a gust of cold air behind me. I turned slightly to see the shadow closing in. Not human, not quite a person, but something far more sinister. "Lila!" the nurse shouted, pulling me through the door. We slammed it shut behind us and leaned against it, panting. The small room was filled with medical supplies and boxes, pale light filtering in through a small window. But it felt different now, A heavier silence filled the air, one that felt almost sacred. I turned to the nurse, fear reflected in her eyes. "What now?" I rasped, feeling my pulse thrum wildly. "We need to barricade the door," she said, rapidly scanning the room. I joined her, pulling over a heavy wooden crate and wedging it against the door. We sank to the floor, hearts pounding as we listened for any signs of movement. Outside, the laughter faded, replaced by an unsettling quiet, almost mocking, like it was waiting for us. "I don't understand," I whispered, my voice trembling. "What did we unleash?" The nurse looked at me, fear etched on her face. "According to those notes, it feeds on fear. It was never supposed to get out." Her voice cracked. "We need to find a way to contain it again." I caught my breath and rifled through the medical supplies strewn about the room. Something caught my eye. A storage box filled with old reports and labels indicating various experiments. Maybe there was something in here that could help. I pulled out a notebook filled with notes, the crinkled pages filled with frantic handwriting. Each word felt charged with urgency. "Look," I said, skimming through. "It mentions a containment procedure. If we can follow it, maybe we can trap it again." "Then what are we waiting for?" she replied, her desperation palpable. We worked quickly, piecing together the instructions, even as the shadows outside shifted ominously. Suddenly, the room trembled. The nurse glanced toward the door as I felt a rush of cold air sweep through the cracks. "It's coming," she hissed. My heart sank, but we pushed through, finding the most critical components to contain the entity. The notes guided me through the steps, but a deep sense of dread settled over me as I understood that we had to confront whatever lay outside. "We need to lure it in," I said quietly, realizing the finality of my words. "Only then can we close the door for good." "No," she shook her head, wild eyes pleading. "There has to be another way. Lila, please." But the laughter echoed once again, this time infused with an even darker energy. It swirled through the air, saturating everything with dread. Fear was its pulse, and it felt strong. With resolve, I gripped her arm. "Trust me. It wants me. I felt it before. It knows me." I stepped toward the door, my pulse racing, ready to face the lurking darkness. "Be careful," she cried, desperate. "I will," I promised, glancing back. "Just be ready." I took a deep breath, the weight of the moment crashing down on my shoulders as I reached to unlock the door. The taunting laughter intensified, fueling my determination. Each click of the lock felt like a countdown. And then, with a final push, I threw the door open, calling out into the shadows. "I'm here! Come and get me!" The darkness surged forward, enveloping me in a grip of cold despair. The shadows twisted, and I felt its presence approach, a force unlike anything I had ever experienced. Suddenly, I heard the nurse yelling behind me, her voice a sharp anchor in the chaos. "Lila, now!" I sprang back, and as the entity lunged for me, I pulled the door shut with all my might. "Help!" I shouted, adrenaline burning through me as I locked it tight, trembling hands bracing against the frame. "We have to push together," the nurse urged, her strength mingling with my own. With a sudden burst, we both shoved against the door, our voices entwined in a desperate chant. Shadows clawed at the other side, and I could feel the wrongness pushing back. My heart raced as we drove our collective will into that door, pounding it closed once and for all. The laughter turned into a furious wail, a cacophony that seemed to echo through the very halls of the hospital. And just like that, silence fell. Breathless, we stood before that door, knowing we had sealed something back within the hospital. But the relief didn't fully wash over me. "What happens now?" I asked, staring at the door with a mix of triumph and dread. "I don't know," the nurse replied, her voice shaky. "But we have to leave. We can't stay here. Whatever that was, it's not gone forever." We stepped away, hand in hand, stepping into the hall and realizing that outside the shadows still lingered and the lines between fear and reality had forever blurred. As we escaped through the rear exit, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Would it return? Was this what my near-fatal encounter had meant to teach me? One question hung heavy in my heart as we fled. Had we truly contained it, or merely bought time? I moved to a different city after that. Sometimes, in the quiet of the night, I wonder if anyone else faces the same terror. But mostly, I try not to think about it.